welcome to RingTalk Season 3, Episode 2. Obviously, I'm not Martin Theobald. Martin's not here. I'm already an earlier substitution in the season. I'm obviously joined with Steve. Steve, how you doing?
I'm good, Kev. You okay, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. So Martin's
good.
On the missing list. I've stepped in. So before we start, Steve, I know there's something you want to deal with first of all. So let's go with that first of all, and then we'll roll on from there.
Right. So what I want to deal with is when we do this ring talk, and a lot of people in boxing do other podcasts, there is a difference between an opinion and being insulting to a person. Now, insulting somebody is totally unacceptable, but having an opinion in this day and age is perfectly fine if it's not insulting. And whether you get it right or whether you get it wrong, having an opinion is fine. I'm fed up with the woke culture where nobody wants to have an opinion and people want to sit on the fence and never want to say what they think. And that is something I'll never do, and we should never do it. Now, there's been two instances in the last 2 weeks, I think. One was I got it wrong, and we'll cover prize fighter. I didn't think Elisoro would win prize fighter. I was wrong, which I will deal with. So we're entitled to get things wrong. That's why we bet on horses or boxing or whatever. Yeah. And sometimes we win, sometimes we lose. So that's an opinion when you bet. So I got that one wrong. But I got private messages, quite insulting and stuff like this. And it's just nonsense that you should be entitled to have an opinion without doing it. And Martin Theobald, I saw him put up a post about Danny Dignam before the fight, which was basically saying, I don't think Danny Dignam's got any chance of winning, which I think is it wasn't insulting. And then he got called all these various names by various people. Now, the point is, why shouldn't somebody have an opinion? So what you're saying is, if you express an opinion that doesn't agree with your own opinion, I'm going to insult you. Yeah. Now that to me is ridiculous. And people that do that should feel ashamed of themselves. Otherwise people won't express opinions. And I find it really, really ridiculous. So I do want to say that we're about opinions. And for those people that do that, and people must have watched this ring talk to post those comments or to send me those messages. If you're watching it, let people have an opinion. It may not agree with yourselves. I'm sure those people have opinions about things and they get it right and get it wrong. So let's stop criticising people for having opinions. That's the end of that.
The good part, so the good part about you saying about that, about the betting as well, there's a whole industry, the betting industry is huge. Betting is purely based on opinions, isn't it? There's a whole $1 billion industry on the fact we bet on things we think will or won't happen. And you know, there's lots of money being there, and they make money of the people's opinions to get it wrong. So, you're going to get opinions wrong from side to side. So, and Twitter would be a very boring place without opinions. But all right, so you mentioned obviously prize fight. You said you got it wrong. So, review of the prize fighter tournament, obviously the Cruiserweight tournament up in Manchester. What was your overview of it? What did you think? Obviously, Ellis won out to Zora.
I thought experience won the day. I think Ellis showed, although Ellis only had 3 amateur fights, he'd had a lot more professional bouts than everybody else. And I thought that because others had a lot more amateur experience than he had, traditionally in prize fights, it's won by those with often better amateur experience than those with a lot more pro fights. So the percentage call for me was, I thought Elisoro would struggle. I actually thought Jamie Smith would beat him as well, and he didn't. He lost to him in the semi-final. Ellis didn't win every round 30-27. He won in the final 2 cards 29-28. He beat Jamie Smith on 2 cards 29-28. So he did win. He deserved to win, but he didn't win clearly winning every card, every round, whatever. But he was the best fighter, and he totally deserved to win. And I genuinely didn't think he'd win it. So full credit to Ellis and for proving me wrong. He's a nice lad. Now we'll see how far he can go. I know they were talking about British titles. I think that's a bit premature, but you know, he's now can move on and maybe get the winner of the English title, the Martel Watkins fight, or whatever he wants to do. But I mean, Sky may well sign him now. They tend to sign the winners, so he may get Sky behind it, which will really help him. So good luck to him. He deserved to win that, but we'll just see how he goes. But yeah, I got that wrong. I personally don't think Jamie Smith boxed to his potential. And I think I went out for dinner with Jamie and his trainer on Friday, and Jamie said, "What did you think?" And I said, "You look like a rabbit in headlights." And you didn't look like the composed fighter that I have seen, and it looked like you just got blown away by the occasion. And I think that's what happened to a few of them in there. And Elizardo was just so.
And happened. I think Jamie didn't. Obviously hadn't boxed beforehand. There was a couple of times he was due to box and didn't, and stuff like that. And it is very different, isn't it? Very sometimes going from our shows onto a Sky platform, especially one that's sort of main, prime time in terms of that. And also, I think the Boxxer tournament. Sorry, Sky, we call it Prize Fight all the way through, but it's not Prize Fighter. It's Ultimate Boxer or Boxxer Series. That is just a different format, isn't it? In terms of it's everyone goes crazy to start off with for 3 rounds, which is always interesting to me, Steve, because a boxer starting off has 4 3-minute rounds and tends to not go crazy. This is only 1 round shorter, but for some reason everybody goes goes batshit crazy in terms of throwing, which is great, which makes the format great. But it's an interesting thing. So so just touch on Jamie. So you obviously didn't think he boxed your best, but I think there was glimpses. He showed what he can do. And with the, if you look, I think when he went into it, Jamie would have been 5-0 and Ernest would have been 12-0 going into that fight. So there's a big.
No, Jamie was 3-0
before the start. But obviously he'd had a fight before that, didn't he? Which went in 4-0.
He's 4-0.
4-0. And then I think Ellis was 13 or 12 or whatever going into that one.
He showed.
Experience. So it was good. But on the whole, do you like that format, Steve? The Boxxer
I think they're great nights. I think that I actually thought it was an exciting competition to watch. And obviously I was aboard. I didn't get to see every fight until I've got home. But I think it's a really, really good format. Elizardo boxed so smart. He's got a brilliant trainer, Martin Bowers, and they just had the game plan to be effective. Martin knew exactly what to do and how to win it, and he instructed Ellis carried it out. Didn't do it was just but the format's great. And I think going forward, I think it'd be interesting because Boxxer have now signed Corey Gibbs, who won the first one. Dylan Chima won the second. I presume they'll sign Elizardo. It'd be very interesting to see how these prize fighter winners develop, because it's quite historical. If you go back on Boxxer winners, if you go back to prize fight and go back to look at a lot of the winners who won the original prize fighter tournament, a lot of them didn't go on. A lot of them did not go on from it.
And also the early prize fighters had a lot more experienced people in them. As you see now, there's a few more people there that obviously only had 3, 4, 5 fights, etc., which I think is great. I think it gives an opportunity earlier, but historically it tends to go back. But I'm a big fan of the platform. I love it. I think it's a great format. But rolling on, so obviously you had a couple of fighters or 3 fighters on the Wasserman undercard, which I know is sort of 2 weeks ago now. We'll start off with the main event. We'll start off with Linus. Obviously, close split decision. Unfortunately, coming on the wrong side against Denzel Bentley. What was your view of that, Steve?
Could have gone either way. And I thought Linus threw it away in the last round. I thought he coasted the last round. And if he'd won the last round, he'd have got a draw. And I thought Linus won the early rounds. Denzel Bentley came back towards the end of the fight. I thought Linus done himself credit. I think his stock has risen. I think he'll come again. I think he will win a British title. I don't think there was any disgrace in the defeat. Denzel Bentley's been there before, British level, won it, lost it. He's a quality fighter. Although I see Denzel's calling out the guy that beat Danny Dignam. I don't think that's a very good idea. I really don't think that's a very good idea.
Just on that, Steve, let's sort of digress slightly, because I don't want your opinion. Obviously, I was in Linus's corner with Terry Stewart and Ellis on the day. Really close fight. We knew it was close. It was a thing. One interesting thing that we discovered and talked about with actually Ben Harmsworth at the board is his opinion. Boxing's strange in a very way, because it's the only sport we play where we don't know the score. So you're given advice on the basis of what you think the score is, but you don't actually know the score. There's no other sport. You don't play football without knowing what the score is. If you're 2-0 down, you put more attacks on, you change your game plan. it's boxing's one of the only sports, probably the only sport where you don't play tennis without knowing the score. You don't play snooker without knowing the score. You always know the score. In boxing, we're completely blind. It's just well, I think he got that one. He thinks he got that one. It's a strange. Would you like to see a change in that, Steve? Would you like to see maybe they announce the scorecards after?
No, because if somebody's ahead, it will make a fighter go defensive. And
don't you think that happens anyway?
Well, they do it, but if Linus, I mean, I don't know. I wasn't in the corner, but if Linus was told he was clearly winning, so coast the last round.
Yeah, he wasn't told he was clearly winning. He knew he was thing. But again,
yeah. But I don't know what the instructions were. But
sure.
but he boxed the last round as if he thought he won the fight, and that. I think that's part of the thing of boxing, not knowing who's winning. And I wouldn't want running scorecards. I don't like it. And I think that's what you're watching the fight thinking. I mean, I didn't know who was winning the Linus Bentley. If I was watching it in a bar in Benidorm, and I just thought it was so close. I just didn't know.
Yeah.
And you know, I think that's part of the thing. If you knew those scorecards, you'd have had the last round. You'd have had Linus knowing he needed to win it to get a draw. And then the fight totally changes, doesn't it?
Sure.
If the boxers know what's going on. I don't like that. I think it's okay.
But is that not football? Do you not get that in football? 2-0 up, they go more defensive. The other team goes more attacking to try and break the thing. It's I'm not saying it's the thing. I don't think you have a scorecard after every one.
But I also think the problem with refs then are under scrutiny every round. You'll get crowds booing.
Yeah, I don't think you do it every round. I think you maybe do it in a 10 round. You maybe do it round 5, and that's about it, just midway through. And then on a 12 round, you maybe do it 3, 6, and 9.
You imagine at your call, right? You've got a referee reffing. You've got Florian Marku with 1,000 Albanians in your call. And after 5 rounds, he scored 3-2 down.
Sure.
Really? And the referee's in the middle of that?
I get there's problems. I get there's problems with it because if he ends up losing the fight, you're still going to have that anyway. You're still going to have people.
Yeah, but the referee's out of the ring and gone. But if you're there having 5 rounds and they've announced the score, he's got their man behind.
Sure.
Oh, I think that's difficult. I don't think it works.
It's just interesting in terms of the sport that it's the only sport.
I get it. They tried it though, didn't they? WBC tried it.
Yeah, in terms, I think they did after a few rounds. It's just when you think about that, about you give advice on the fact of that you don't know what the score is, and obviously judging's been under scrutiny. In this, it was a really close fight. There's no thing, but when judges been under scrutiny as well, you're also given advice on the fact of what you don't know. But anyway, that's that. So.
Brad Pauls was the next one.
And that was Brad Pauls.
And that was another close one. And again, I mean, he won that one. And that one could have gone either way. Same as Linus's. And, you know, Brad got the nod, Linus didn't. So we got 1 out of 2 there. Brad, again, that was the first time in the bright lights. I think he can box better than that. But I mean, it was a brilliant fight. Kelly put up a great fight. I actually thought Brad would just walk through him and knock, and I thought he'd stop him. I was quite surprised how close the fight was. I thought it would be a much easier job than that. But Kelly came well prepared and fought a really good fight. I thought Kelly overperformed, and I thought Brad underperformed. That was my opinion. But he managed to get the win. So, you know, good luck to him. Yes.
That was so that was a British title eliminator. So obviously, what's the view now for Brad or for Linus? Just quickly, touching. What do you think is the next move for both of them?
Well, I'm going to have a meeting with Wasserman's. I don't think on the basis for that you'd put Brad into, even if it was available, into a British title fight on the back of the Ryan Kelly fight. You definitely would want. I would definitely want to see him in another fight before we go to that level. I think remember, Brad's only fought at Southern Area level. Linus has fought at English level. Yeah. So you've got to know where you come from. But I think Brad needs another fight of that sort of ilk going forward. And Linus, really, we'll sit down with Wasserman's and decide how they want to play it. Because what people have to understand, when boxers sign promotional contracts with a promoter does have the right, after a boxer loses, the contract terminates. Or it doesn't always terminate. But
they have the option to, don't they? Yeah.
You have the option to, which is, I don't think people understand that. And there are sort of fight. There are clauses in some contracts would give you a
comeback fight or a rematch,
comeback fight, whatever. So we've got to sit and make a decision on what we want to do. I'm sure, but Linus's stock is right up there, so there's no problem. There's no problem with Linus going forward. And Brad will sit down. I mean, I would hope they'll be back September time, and we'll sit down over the next 2 or 3 weeks with Wasserman's and make a plan. And
then just on that, also we had Constantin Ursu on the undercard as well. You managed to get a slot for him on that opportunity to showcase his skill. Constantin, great amateur, very good potential. Won the 4-rounder, so won every round in terms of the thing. What did you think of his performance?
He done very well for the first 2 rounds and didn't do so well in the last 2 rounds.
Mm-hmm. As in he won the last 2 rounds, didn't he? It wasn't as good. I do think it's a little bit with the same as Brad, really. Obviously, Constantin, only had a few pro fights, gone from a small show to, the difference. There's a massive difference between going from, a small hall show to cameras in your face. The thing. It's a whole different experience for boxers. It does take for some.
He looked exceptional in round 1. Exceptional.
Yeah, and really showed part of what he can do.
He showed some real class, but it got a bit scrappy in the last 2. Whilst he won the rounds, he didn't look as good as he did at the start. Maybe, and that may be just maybe the bright lights and that sort of thing. But he showed glimpses. But again, he's a young man and he hasn't had many fights and COVID broke his career. But I thought it was a really a good performance. But you see, when you get these showcases, I remember when Linus done his first Sky show. When you get these showcases, it isn't to get signed. You have to be exceptional. A good performance is not enough for these big promoters to come and grab you.
Sometimes, I say.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. So you get a showcase. I remember Fabio Wardley when he had his showcase, he looked absolutely exceptional.
Yeah.
Eddie Hearn signed him on the back of that showcase.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you have the opportunity in these showcases, but you have to be exceptional normally to get signed.
To be able to do it. Okay, so
both, by the way, Constantin Ursu will end up being a TV fighter, no doubt.
100%. Yeah, no doubt about it. Absolutely, no doubt. Certainly one to watch for the future. So talking about Matchroom, obviously at the Matchroom card at the weekend, Boatsi, Craig Richards. What was your view of it? What did you think?
My view was Martin's opinion, and I disagree, was don't watch the undercard. It's a pile of shite. And don't watch.
Sound like Martin to say stuff like that. Yeah.
But there was one fight on the undercard that was worthy of the whole undercard. So let's just go through the main 4 fights. You had Ellie Scottney, who looked very, very good. And I said at the start, future world champion. I still say future world champion.
Yeah, we had her on this podcast before, back in a couple of years ago during COVID, didn't we?
She's exceptional. And again, it was, but it was very one-sided.
Sure.
So the problem was, from a watching perspective, it wasn't that great because she was just clinical and levels above the opponent.
Mm-hmm.
And exactly the same was with the Chantel Cameron world title fight.
Yeah.
Chantel Cameron's a brilliant fighter, but it was too one-sided to be a good spectacle. But my God, Alan Babbage, Adam Balski. That was a fight.
I haven't seen it. I've seen the reaction on Twitter. I've seen the Instagram. I haven't seen it.
It was one of the best fights I've seen. Now, what people didn't realise, Adam Balski made his debut on a Goodwin show back in 2013.
I didn't even know that, did he?
He did. He came over to the UK and I managed him for one fight.
Right.
Because he was over here, he needed a manager, so he's going to settle in the UK.
Yeah.
And he did the one fight in the UK. Steve Kipp's done his corner. And then, he went back to Poland. And he built his career in Poland. So Adam Balski, nobody even picked that up on Sky that he made his debut in London at York Hall. But my God, what a tough man. And the fight was just, honestly, Kev, I'd never say to you about watching a fight, when you get half an hour,
I'll have to watch it.
It was just, and one thing is, look, Alan Babbage is not the most technically gifted fighter, but I would always watch his fight. And
Yeah.
Alan, and the reason Martin was wrong is Alan. If you didn't watch the undercard, you'd have missed that fight. And to miss that fight, it was just absolutely amazing. And he is just great to watch. Not the most technically gifted, but it's just unbelievable. In the ninth round, the bell sounded. Belski clipped Babbage. Babbage was gone, totally gone. If it had carried on, he was going. He was unstopped, and he came out, and it was just like that the whole time. He was gone, then he was gone, and it was just like it was an amazing fight. Honestly, anybody who watches hasn't watched it, you must go and watch it.
Go and watch it. Oh, I have to give it a watch. Obviously on the
main card, the main event also was very good.
Yeah.
It's really weird because I think Craig Richards deserves an immense amount of credit. And I think now what I would say, and again, this is my opinion, when he was fighting on small hall shows at Southern Area level, he won the Southern Area title, beating Alan Higgins. And I actually thought he lost that fight and got gifted a decision, right? And I still maintain he lost that fight. To come from losing and getting a fortunate decision against Alan Higgins, or a very close decision, to fighting Frank Buglioni short notice, which he did lose that fight, to fighting Dimitri Bivol, and then that fight against Joshua Boatsi, what a fantastic, that guy has full credit to boxing, to himself, to his family, for being able to do that, to build up. And Peter Sims has done a great job with him as well.
Yeah. He knocked out Shikan Pitters as well. He had that fight as well, didn't he? Beat him as well. So he's gone on a great round.
No, the other thing also, remember, Matchroom didn't give a toss about him then, because they threw him away to Channel 5 to go in the away corner. So he had his promoter who had given up on him and threw him away as a B-side. He goes away, has to do it the hard way against Shikan Pitters. He obviously went in the away corner against Jake Ball. Remember? So he's done it the hard way. So that man, Craig Richards, I've got full admiration for him.
Definitely. But what do you think about Boatsi?
Right, now, Boatsi, what I found, several times during the fight, he was hurt, right?
Yeah.
When he got hurt, he just stood there. Now, I always have said about Craig that one thing I found about him is I think there's more than he gives sometimes. Now, he gave everything. Now, I don't mean that I've just said how much I rate him, right? But I've always found at times he doesn't go sometimes for the kill. He just holds that big, but even against Frank, when he fought Frank Buglioni, he sometimes you feel as if you want to shake him, go for it. And when he hurt Joshua Boatsi stood there. It was as if he didn't know what to do. And I felt at times Craig could have gone for it a bit more and gambled a bit more. He did at times, but there were times. Boatsi, I've always really highly rated. But I felt that when he got hurt, he wasn't sure what to do. And if he goes up another level, I think if so, do
you think Boatsi's at his level? Do you think this is the level? Should he goes on to be a world champion? What do you think? What's your opinion?
I hope I'm wrong, because he's a really nice man. I really like Josh Boatsi.
Great.
And I hope he wins the world title and becomes unified. But I don't think he does on what I'm seeing. I think he can win a world title, but it depends on who he fights. I don't think he beats Beterbiev. I don't think he beats Bivol. I'd like to see him beat them both, but I think it depends on who he fights. But I think there were enough flaws there yesterday that we'll see him exposed by the real top level.
And he's 29 now, so he's got a little bit of time until that, but he hasn't got too long.
No, he's going. You know, I thought there were flaws there against Craig, and I think Craig's a great fighter, but I think there'll be flaws when you go a level above Craig that could be exposed.
Okay, and so moving on, obviously Danny Dignam had the world title chance at the weekend. What was your view of that, Steve? I know you spoke about it last week, but what was your view of Danny? First of all, I hope he's okay. Obviously, I know it was a bad knockout loss. I hope he's okay is the main thing.
Well, here's the conundrum. Okay, here's the conundrum. I can only say what I said before, and I was talking to Linus before the fight, and I said to Linus, I wouldn't let you do this fight. Now, there's all this thing about dare to be great and dare to do this and dare to do that. I think you've got to pick your fights, and there's a reason why people don't want to fight this kid.
Sure.
Because he's exceptional, right? Now, Danny Dignam has been manipulated into a world-ranked fighter by beating Grant Dennis. Beating Grant Dennis doesn't make you world number 4, right?
Sure.
You can't go from beating Grant Dennis, who is 38 years old, and with all respect to Grant, he's a good fighter, but he's not at the top of his game now at 38, to go in and fighting this kid. And for me, this is my style of management. I thought that was obvious. He was going to get absolutely obliterated, right? And he was obliterated, and he was knocked out badly. Now, the conundrum you have as a manager, for my thing is, I wouldn't want to see Linus like that. If Linus got £1 million and was set up for life and had that one fight and could walk away from the sport and be able to set his life up forever, that's one thing. But and I don't know, I have no idea what he got paid, no idea. But that for me, unless you're getting life-changing money, really life-changing money, is not a fight that I would have taken. But the conundrum is, Danny Dignam, when else would he get a world title shot? Sure. So you've got the conundrum as what do you do? And this is what different managers will make different decisions. Sure. And you can't, again, it's about opinions again, isn't it? You can't criticize anybody for taking the fight if that's what they wanted to do.
Absolutely.
But for me, there was the chance of him beating him was virtually non-existent.
Sure.
And I said it before, so I said to Linus, and you know, if Linus had gone in with him, I think Linus would have got knocked out as well.
Sure.
The guy is exceptional. And so therefore, for me, you need, if you're going to take the chance, you need the financial compensation to understand what you're walking into. But for me, I didn't like it. I didn't like to watch it. I didn't like to see the knockout. I don't like to see a fighter that is just literally is put in a fight and he gets hurt. And I don't like to see it. But thank God, hopefully he's well and he's back to normal again.
It's difficult, isn't it? There's more to management than people think that there is in terms of that. Because like you say, it's very difficult because on one hand, you don't want to deny a fighter an opportunity. Ultimately, you work for the fighter as a manager. Ultimately, it's the fighter that makes the final decisions. Effectively, we're only here to advise and give opinions and to make them aware of contractual obligations, etc. So it's a real balance between, you know, not being able to, you know, or denying them that opportunity, or, you know, allowing them to do it, or advise them and try and maneuver. So, you know, management is complex. It is very difficult.
And what we would say, though, Kev, you could get different managers who would view it differently.
Absolutely, sure.
I'm just giving you
mine. Okay as well. Coming back to the opinions thing, first of all, you know, you do need different styles of manager. That's totally fine. Everyone gets you know, if you're a manager, that's what you get to do. You get to make the decisions that you feel are right. So it's, you know, and as we said earlier, people get things wrong sometimes, and everyone doesn't get everything right all the time. So it's, if
I was taking that fight for Linus, I would be saying to him, Linus, I think the percentage call is this is going to happen. We need to, I mean, similar thing. We were offered the Chris Eubank fight on the day. Do you remember?
I do. Right? On the last Wasserman show. So it was the Eubank's opponent. Obviously, it was changed at last minute, wasn't it? They're trying to think. They wanted to bring in Linus. I don't know if you've ever spoke about this, actually, Steve. Have we spoke about this on the podcast?
I'm not sure we have. No, I don't think we have.
So basically, Eubank's opponent for that failed a medical, didn't he? Had a medical issue on the thing. They tried to make the fight with Linus on the day. They wanted to swap because he was fighting. That was when he fought Brunozzi, wasn't it? And they wanted to swatch it on and have Linus fight Chris Eubank. There was obviously a whole lot of conversation and back and forth we had. So I don't know if you want to quickly touch on that, Steve. We've got a few minutes. So
basically, the bottom line was we got a call at 9:30. We knew there was a problem. I got a phone call at 9:30 on Saturday morning. I'd spoken to Linus, and my financial demands were X. And
absolutely,
and their financial pay was probably B.
Yeah.
So they were offering me, I wanted X. So
yeah, absolutely.
We were a million miles away, and therefore we didn't do it. Now, my view was Linus wasn't going to beat Eubank. Therefore, and obviously, if he was losing badly, then Terry could have pulled him out or whatever. But the point was, if there was enough money to set him up for life, and I could be sure that he wasn't
there was a comeback fight as well. We talked about that, didn't we? Went to make sure that Linus, if he lost the fight, which obviously, you know, Eubank is at a different level at this stage, and to make sure that there was a route back for Linus as well. That was important. That was as important as the money as well, Steve, wasn't it?
Correct. But we wanted both. So unless those conditions were met and they were non-negotiable, it wasn't going to happen. So, so from their end, it took about 20 seconds for them to go, I knew you'd say this, and that was the end of it.
Problem. And that's absolutely fine as well. That's the important thing to make, is you don't have to fall out with people because you have a thing. We had a position where it was like, this is the position. They said, we're not going to pay that. No problem. Okay, cool. Like, no one has to fall out. We understand your side. You understand our side. We don't meet. That's business, and we can move on. And that's exactly what happened. It all moved on. But yeah, it's interesting with that management is more combat. And a lot of this happens behind the scenes. I often think we're undersold because we're not as public on social media in terms of, we don't always talk about the meetings we have or anything else like that. Sometimes I think that's a negative of ours, but I also think it's the right thing to do, because not everything should be public knowledge until things happen, because it's all good saying hearsay and stuff like that. But a lot of this stuff happens in the background that nobody really knows that goes on. So it's an interesting point. But yeah, so Danny Dickham, hope he's okay. Certainly sure he'll be back. Obviously just not probably at world level for them. Right, so obviously we've got some shows coming up. I think we're going to cover that next week in the Ring Talk coming up next week. Obviously we've got 4 shows in 4 weeks coming up. Did we get any questions, Steve, or have we covered the questions in the...
Well, I think we covered it. Ramez was asking what's next for Linus and Brad, and but I think we covered that in what we've done already. So we'll have a bigger Q&A next week when Martin's back.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks very much, and we'll look forward to next week.